Friday, 5 p.m. Jerusalem time from NBC Studios. This is NBC Journal with Bassam Zahir and Sana Abu Samra.
Palestinian prisoner dies in Israeli custody after medical negligence.
Israeli ministers sign petition to settle 2 million Jews in West Bank.
Israeli settlers open fire at Palestinians in Al-Mughayyar.
Hello and welcome again. President Abbas arrived in Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa on Saturday evening, wherein he is scheduled to attend the 32nd African Union Summit. The president delivered a speech during the summit and met African leaders and officials. The African Unit Summit this year takes place between February 10th to 11th under the theme The Year of Refugees, returns and internally displaced persons towards durable solutions to forced displacements in Africa. The summit highlighted the latest developments in the major conflict areas in Africa, as well as the continuous efforts to resolve these conflicts and enhance the framework of preventive diplomacy on the continent.
President Mahmoud Abbas met with Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz in the Saudi capital Riyadh, where they discussed the latest political developments in Palestine, especially the dangers facing Jerusalem. President Abbas briefed the Saudi King on the latest developments in the Palestinian territories and political process in the light of the continued Israeli violations against the Palestinian people, land and holy sites and attempts to pass the so-called deal of the century. Abbas arrived in the Saudi capital on Monday on an official two-day state visit, coming from Addis Ababa, where he attended the African Union Summit.
18-year-old Hamzi Shtewi and 14-year-old Hassan Shalabi, who were shot dead by Israeli soldiers on Friday during the Gaza March of Return protests, were laid to rest on Saturday in Gaza City and Khan Yunis respectively, in which hundreds of Palestinians took part in the funeral procession of both Shtewi and Shalabi. Over 25 participants in protest have suffered as well various kinds of injuries from bullets and tear gas fired by soldiers stationed on the Israeli side of fence.
51-year-old Faris Baroud from a Shati refugee camp in the besieged Gaza Strip died due to medical negligence on Wednesday after serving 28 years in Israeli prisons, 4 of which were spent in solitary confinement. According to the Palestinian Prisoners and Former Prisoners Affairs Committee, Baroud died shortly after being transferred from the Israeli Rimon prison in southern Israel to an Israeli hospital for intensive care following deterioration in his health. The committee confirmed that 60 Palestinian prisoners have died while in Israeli detention due to medical negligence since the occupation of the West Bank, including East Jerusalem in 1967.
Late Friday, Israeli settlers have opened fire at Palestinians in Al-Mughayyar village in the central-occupied West Bank district of Ramallah and Al-Biri. Despite impeding the settlers' raid on the village, Israeli settlers opened fire at locals. No injuries were reported. 2 weeks earlier, in a similar attack, Israeli settlers had shot and killed a Palestinian father from the village. Weekly protests are constantly organized by residents of Al-Mughayyar in rejection of the Israeli confiscation of the village's lands and the continuous attacks by Israeli settlers against villagers.
On the 7th of February, the World Bank approved a $30 million development policy grant for the purpose of supporting the Palestinian Authority's reform program in strengthening fiscal resilience and creating an environment conducive for private investment and job creation. The grant program will continue to support the Palestinian Authority's implementation of the Palestinian National Policy Agenda between 2017 and 2022, with emphasis on improving government transparency of fiscal transfers to local service providers in key sectors, while reducing the fiscal drain on the Palestinian Authority's budget. While the new grant will continue to support progress to improve the Palestinian Authority's service delivery in energy, water and health, it is also essential to modernize and improve the legal and regulatory business environment to attract investors and entrepreneurs and to build on a new reform momentum in land administration and cashless mobile payments, said Damir Kozik, World Bank senior economist.
Israeli occupation undercover forces detained a Palestinian man from inside Jamal Abdel Nasser Mosque in central of Al-Biri city in the central occupied West Bank. Locals identified the detained man as Hamzi Ghanem, 30-year-old from Al-Biri city who works at the mosque. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Red Crescent teams said that they treated 5 injuries during the Israeli forces raid on Ramallah city. one of the live bullets, 2 with rubber-coated steel bullets, and 2 tear gas suffocation cases. All injuries were transferred to hospitals in Ramallah and Al-Bir district for treatment.
Dozens of Israeli ministers and senior officials from the Likud political party and other right-wing parties have signed a petition to settle 2 million Jews across the occupied West Bank. The signed petition was put forward by the Nahala movement, an Israeli settler group, to promote an Israeli settlement plan introduced under the government of late Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir in the early 1900s. Nahala activists have been recently protesting outside of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, demanding the next government to work toward the settlement of all of West Bank and to abandon the idea of a two-state solution.
Palestinian officials confirmed their rejection of an invitation to attend the Warsaw Conference on the Middle East, which was called for by the United States on Sunday. Secretary General of the Palestinian Liberation Organization Executive Committee, Sa'ib Erekat, affirmed that regarding invitations to deliver to us, we can say that only today there was some contact from the Polish side. Our position, however, remains clear. We are not going to attend this conference. We have not mandated on anyone to talk on behalf of Palestinians.
The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund demanded on Saturday the end of violence against Palestinian children after Israeli forces shot and killed 2 minors in the besieged Gaza Strip. During the Great March of Return protests, Hassan Iyad Shalabi, 13, and Hamza Muhammad Shtewi, 17, were shot and killed with live ammunition by Israeli forces. UNICEF said in a statement, UNICEF is deeply saddened by the killing of 2 children aged 13 and 17 years old shot yesterday in the Gaza Strip. This brings the number of Palestinian children killed this year to 4. As we mark 30 years since the Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is essential that the fundamental rights of children be respected.
Israeli occupation forces banned teachers' access to the village of Beit Iqsa, northwest of Jerusalem, preventing them from reaching their school, said a local official. Saad al-Khatib, head of the Beit Aqsa Village Council, told Wafa that Israeli forces prevented 5 teachers from entering the village to reach the Beit Iqsa Secondary Girls' School. Obstruction of education there. As a result, the Ministry of Education and Higher Education sent the teachers to another school in the town of Bidu, north of occupied Jerusalem.
Spokesman for the Palestinian caretaker government of Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah, Youssef al-Mahmoud, said on Saturday that any steps by any parties taken outside the framework of the Palestine Liberation Organization, within or outside Palestine, are meaningless. The US has called for a conference in Warsaw in the Middle East. The PLO, which cut all contacts with the US administration since its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital in December 2017, has refused to attend it and denounced it as a conspiracy to end Palestinian rights in Jerusalem, independence, statehood, and return of refugees to their homes usurped in 1948.
Rashida Tlaib, the first Palestinian American woman elected in the U.S. Congress, said she hopes to draw on her roots in the Middle East to present her colleagues with a different introduction to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than the one offered from pro-Israel lobbying groups like AIPAC. Ms. Tlaib highlighted that her delegation aimed to humanize Palestinians, provide an alternative perspective to the one AIPAC pushes, and highlight the inherent inequality of Israel's system of military occupation in the Palestinian territories. Her delegation will also emphasize on the subject areas involving education, clean water, access, and poverty.
Israeli occupation forces destroyed a recently rehabilitated road that connected Khirbet Sha'b al-Butum to Masafer Yatta, south of the West Bank, said a local activist. Coordinator of the anti-wall and anti-settlement committees in southern Hebron, Ratib al-Jbour, told Wafa that Israeli forces provided protection to a military bulldozer as it proceeded to destroy the road, which was used to facilitate Palestinian farmers' access to their farmlands and residential areas.
Israeli occupation forces detained on Tuesday 12 Palestinians in multiple overnight raids across the West Bank, said the Palestinian Prisoners Society. Israeli military vehicles raided Jenin refugee camp, where soldiers detained 5 Palestinians after storming their families' houses. The overnight raid into the camp triggered confrontations during which soldiers opened fire towards youthful protesters, injuring a protester with a live round in his knee. In the Hebron district, forces detained 2 Palestinians, including a 16-year-old teen, in a raid into Beit Omar town north of Hebron. Security sources also confirmed another raid into Hebron city, during which soldiers ransacked the houses of former Minister Isa al-Jabari, wreaked havoc inside, and seized cash. Across last week, 50 Palestinians were also detained. Israeli forces frequently raid Palestinian houses also almost on a daily basis across the West Bank under the pretext of searching for wanted Palestinians, triggering clashes with residents.
The Israeli authorities on Monday gave the Abu Asab family in the Muslim quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem 24 hours to evict its home and turn it over to a Jewish settler group, according to the family. They urged residents and international organizations to help them prevent their eviction from the home they had lived in all their life. A sit-in is planned at the targeted house on Tuesday evening to protest the Israeli decision, said the family. The settlers claimed ownership of the house located near Al-Aqsa Mosque in spite of the Abu Asab family contending that the settlers' claim was not legal.
The school administration at Arif Secondary School in the village of Arif, southwest of Nablus, in the occupied West Bank, was forced to evacuate students after being attacked by Israeli settlers and forces, said a local activist. Ghassan Douglas, who monitors settlements activities in the northern West Bank, told Wafa a number of settlers backed by Israeli soldiers who also fired toward the school attacked the Arif Secondary School, forcing the school administration to evacuate students. And now moving on to university news.
Dr. Rawat Sawalha, university professor at the Faculty of Fine Arts, recently participated in an international conference titled Research into Design for a Connected World, which was held in Bangalore, India from January the 9th until January 11th, 2019. The conference focused on bringing together the international community from diverse areas of design practice, education and research, and showcasing cutting-edge research about design. The conference also aimed at aiding the ongoing process of developing and expanding a collective vision through emerging research challenges and questions, while providing a platform for interaction, collaboration, and development in order to strengthen the global design community. Dr. Sawalha presented a research paper titled Healing by Design, Design of Public Spaces for Children's Hospitals, through which she shed light on four main topics: children's cognitive developments, which relates to age-appropriate interior design, and children's hospital design and healing environments and public spaces in hospitals, interior architecture and interior design, contextual issues, specifically the religious, ethnic and national context of Palestine. Dr. Sawalha is the only Palestinian or Arab woman to participate in the conference, which was organized in cooperation with a number of countries, including Britain, Germany, America and India.
The visit was part of planning industrial zone in the Middle East and Palestine cooperation project, which was signed between An-Najah and Southeast University in 2017 and is funded by the Chinese government to carry out a joint research project on planning industrial zones in Palestine. During the visit, Dr. Ghadiya delivered a lecture on urban planning in Palestine, and Mr. Aside also delivered a lecture on spatial planning in Turkey. They also attended many lectures and discussions on urban and spatial planning and organization in the industrial zones of China and the Middle East region, including Palestine. At the end of the visit, Dr. Ghadiya and Mr. Asida discussed possible means of mutual cooperation between An-Najah and Southeast University to build further relations with the university.
These are the news of the week. Thank you for watching. For more details, visit our website, nn.ps.
See you next Friday.